Hello and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 141. Today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, your sense of accomplishment, and motivation within depression. All right, for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Weldon Green, and I'm an esports psychology trainer, sports psychology trainer. That is what my degree is, Master's in Science in Sports Psychology and Exercise Psychology. And on this show, I talk about esport and high performance and League of Legends and other esports as well, although my coaching experience is pretty much limited to League. Esports psychology transitions across fields very well. And the way that you can ask questions for the show is people call them in, people write them in on Twitter, and they use the hashtag AskWeldon, or they call them in on a little Anchor app that I'm using at the moment. And then I answer them on the show. So you can actually send your own questions in anytime. And since we're now doing this daily show 5 days a week, I need more questions. I need you, please, to look into your life and say, what is really bothering me about my growth, my skill level, the way that I play esport, the way that I train esport, the way that my friends play esport, and then go to anchor.fm/WeldonGreen, click download the app, follow the channel, because I want to get a large following on this brand new weird kind of like audio app, and then call in, which is the main element of this app that I'm using. Call in for the show so I can get your beautiful voice recorded and played back for my stream and for these videos so that I can answer your questions. Or you can skip all of that. You can just go onto Twitter and use the hashtag AskWeldon, and I will do a number of text questions during the show as well, as long as I'm running out of audio questions. And yeah, no real announcements. I did manage to fall on my butt yesterday live on Snapchat. So if you want to catch that and future Snapchat snafus, make sure that you are following me on Snapchat. Since I was basically just chatting with all the people that watch my story on my way to the gym, and just that was it. Sorry if the whistle was loud on your headphones. Hopefully it comes through fine. But yeah, I recommend that. I think my Snapchat is kind of one of my main focuses as far as a platform. I think that the stories are pretty relevant to Snapchat. I try to respond to messages on there. I have open DMs, and it's a lot of fun. So please come join for that reason. Whoa, wrong screen there. What else? Any other announcements? Not really. I went to the gym twice yesterday accidentally. I went at my normal time, and then my dad went, so I joined him as well. Had a lot of brownies and ice cream for dessert after dinner because it was my wife's birthday this week. So that was unfortunate, but I will show you today at the gym on my Snapchat and my Instagram how I'm going to burn that off. By the way, my Instagram is the same as my Snapchat. And pretty similar story, too. I think I pretty much duplicate the story across both platforms. But the Snapchat is first. You guys get it first. So I didn't fall live on my Instagram, unfortunately. But I did manage to cross-post the video eventually once I finally edited it up, figured out how to download it. So anyway, I think that's it for announcements, and I think we can go ahead and jump into the show. The first question today is from Anchor. David asks us.
Okay, hello, Weldon Green podcast. Yet another question. Emotional knowledge. So you mentioned that, and I feel like I've kind of been someone who's been a lot weaker on that end to understand people. I feel like I talk to them, but sometimes it's like there's in Halo community there's a lot of shadiness. Like some people tell you one thing, they act one way, and it's not really that case. Like they tell you they're good, but in reality they're not. And it's like I'm kind of in the person who's like, I take people's word for face value. Like if you tell me you're good, I'm gonna believe you're good. I'm not gonna tell you I think you're lying or something like that. I'm just gonna, like if you're my teammate, I'm gonna have that faith in you. And I feel like that faith should only go so far, and I should work in trying to, like you said, emotional knowledge. How would I go about improving that?
Okay, so I do want to talk about emotional intelligence. David, I think that your question is not exactly about emotional knowledge, but more like how not to get scammed. And I would say emotional intelligence is actually being aware that maybe this person isn't as good as they say they are and still having faith in them regardless. That would be a sign of emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is basically, you could also say emotional maturity. I see it as, if I'm going to define it, your ability to understand your own emotions and others' emotions and to feel empathy. And compassion, I would say too, because I think that there is a certain school of thought that says emotional intelligence is something that is used and abused, meaning that you can be emotionally intelligent and then use it in order to get ahead in the world and abuse people. But I think that that's not actually emotional intelligence, because then people, I would say, don't understand themselves if they cannot feel compassion. So I would say that it is an element of compassion for other humans as well, has to be in there, and your ability to parent and mentor them in a way is folded into my meaning of high emotional intelligence. So how do you go about working on emotional intelligence? Well, I think that reflection is the number one skill needed. So reflection is, your ability to see what drives you. You have behaviors, and those behaviors have underlying emotions that are driving them in the present. I don't mean past kind of experiences, although those are very good things to kind of like work through and talk about. But I mean currently, the emotions that you are currently experiencing that are driving like a certain behavior or not behavior. And understanding why you have those emotions and why they're popping up, but more importantly, why they're driving you, and how it is that you can intersect and jump in between that driving force and that actual behavior. And I think that journaling is a very good tool for this. I think that there's something that I used for a number of years called the 5-minute journal, which was a really simple protocol, and it was quite simply write down 3 things that happened yesterday, that you accomplished yesterday, write down 3 things you want to accomplish today, write down 3 things you're grateful for, and I think that was it. Yeah, I think just those 9 things. And that made me focus a lot on reflection, and I think I was getting pretty decent at reflection before, but I think that and the ability to kind of focus on present moment gratitude, meaning what do I experience gratitude for in the last hour of my life? Not, in the last 24 hours or in the last 48 hours, but in the last 10 minutes, and kind of getting aware of that present state, I would say, experience was really key for me. And then the other thing is that it's really only possible to give kind of emotions and give gratitude and compassion to others from a state of strength, meaning that you have to be sorted out a little bit in your life to then be able to prop up others. And so I think that if you can get yourself emotionally and mentally to a place where you accept the world for what it is and you accept your place in it, and you are less worried about the future and more kind of capable of assisting others in terms of their I don't want to say desires and needs, but I will say emotional needs, then that is a place where you can essentially start to give. And I think that it's possible, of course, to give from other positions, but I think that it gets really complicated. I don't want to say that I have any answers there, and I don't want to say that I have advice for those places where, for example, I have been in, and other people are, where they feel like they can't give too much to others in terms of their emotional support because they just don't have enough reserves in place. I think that you have to defend your emotional fuel in that regard somewhat against people who will kind of like attach a vacuum to it and just be like suck it all out of you. So there is that element in society, but I think that at some point you can become enlightened to the extent to which your emotional willpower is infinite. Although I am certainly not there yet. But that is an aspiration of mine, where people kind of mooching off of it is not going to impact my reserves anymore. But yeah, we'll see when I get there. When I get to Nirvana or whatever. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful as far as really practical activities, how to improve your emotional intelligence. I would start with reflection, journaling. The 5-minute journal is a good place to start, and mindfulness can't be that bad either, by the way, for for that kind of thing. So yeah, thank you, David, for the question. I appreciate it. Let me go ahead and jump to question number 2.
Hey Weldon, how do I train myself out of getting jump scared in PUBG?
Bam, David. That was fast. That was a... Sorry, Judah. Yeah, David, that was the last question. Judah, thank you for the very fast, quick, sweet, short, to the point question there. I don't think I've ever had a question quite like this. So, how do you avoid getting jump scared? That's a reflex, right? If we get down to it. And if I think about let me think about other automatic reflexes. So, for example, claustrophobia. There was a gentleman who jumped from the stratosphere in a little, and in order to get to the stratosphere to jump out and parachute down, he had to ride a capsule for a number of hours, like a balloon capsule. You know, he was in this little capsule and he was just kind of floating up there for a couple hours, and he had a little bit of I don't want to say claustrophobia, but like, you know, contained space, can't move kind of stuff going on there, because you have to sit there for hours. And I believe that they just used habituation to help him conquer that. So I would say it's going to be a mental step. Judah, you have to prepare yourself for the scare in the first place. I would say get ready for the jump, and then you got to get in between like the actual thing that is jumping out and your reflex, right? And so mindfulness is really powerful here. Your awareness of the present. I would say that jump scares are going to happen more when you have expectations and you're kind of living up in your head. You're thinking something else. You're thinking like, I'm going to go around this corner and there's not going to be anybody there, and you're autopiloting your fingers, and your mind is playing its own version of PUBG, wherein which you walk around this corner and there's nobody there, and then you walk around the corner and somebody's there and they shoot you in the face. So you got to step your mind back a couple seconds and get to the point where you are, okay, I am walking around a corner right now, and that's it. You're not making any assumptions or expectations about reality. You're not assigning to it any definitions that don't exist. And instead, you are focused only on what is actually happening, and you are open to all the possibilities that could happen when you step around that corner. And then when you step around the corner and there's a guy there, and he shoots you in the head. So dial your mind back in time a couple milliseconds to the point where you are just focusing on your action with full openness and acceptance to whatever happens. Also, accepting death, really hard to do in real life, a lot easier to do in PUBG. I would kind of go in like expecting death a little bit, and it won't have as much fear or sway over you, and so there won't be this moment of panic when you are in a life and death situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I might be out of the game here. And it'll be more like you need to, react and find a way to play the game. And the third tip that I have, so the first one is, actually I forgot the first one, but the second one is this mindfulness, like step back a little bit. Oh, first one was habituate yourself. Expect there to be somebody there in the first place. Second one was this stepping back, so stop making assumptions about the future. Third one, accepting death a little bit, and then this other tip, which now that I've gone back in time, I've kind of forgotten what the tip was. That was a boo-boo. But anyway, yeah, that's my advice for you. Come on, come back to me. It was so good. It was so good. I was like, oh, this is genius. When I say this out loud, everybody is going to subscribe to my YouTube channel. No, it's gone. All right. Welcome to PUBG, everybody. The scariest. Oh yeah, okay, I remember. Yeah, focus on the skills. The way that I was always getting caught out in the open in PUBG, and I was panicking, and I was just like flicking around, like, where is it coming from? How am I dying? What's going on? In a kind of like a freaked out way. And I wouldn't say that I was jump scared, but I would say that I was not reacting calmly for sure. And so what I did was I started focusing on my skills that I wanted to improve. So first of all, I was like, okay, I need to know where they're shooting from. This is a listening skill. Let me really calmly analyze the bullet sound, and if I find it in time for, because you can hear the sound of the zip and the sound of the impact, so you can actually figure out what direction you're getting shot at in PUBG through sound pretty well. You know, when it impacts the wall, things like that. So I started analyzing the sound and trying to figure out what direction they're shooting from, and I didn't care whether or not I found it before I died. I just tried to focus on that ability. And what happened was essentially that my mind calmed. My mind calmed down, and now when I'm caught out in the open and I start getting shot, I don't have the same kind of like jumpiness. I literally just try to put that there. I literally just kind of focus on attempting to locate the sound, and I might die before I find it, or I might not. But that's irrelevant to the fact that I'm trying to improve the skill of listening. So I have something else to occupy my mind that is kind of more exciting and more interesting than whether or not I'm dying or I'm getting scared, I'm getting shot, those kind of things. So I hope that was helpful, Judah. My answer to your question was in direct opposite proportion to the length of your question. I hope you noticed that. So for those of you in the future, make sure you write your question down in the Anchor.fm app and ask these very awesome, succinct questions. And that leaves it so open-ended that I rail on and on and on for a while. All right. Those are the Anchor questions for today, and I have 2 Twitter questions to jump through, and they are about sense of accomplishment and how to get motivated. So let's go ahead and dive into the first one. Chad Markle, 99. Yesterday, he asked, is a sense of accomplishment bad? Is there a middle ground you should strive for? And now I wish that I had kind of considered this before the show so that I would know what I was going to say. But I would say a sense of accomplishment is irrelevant. It's not good or bad. I think that a sense of ego and pride beforehand is useful and powerful. I think that beforehand you need to have a sense of ego and a sense of striving and a sense of how good you are, and the more that you're able to play yourself up as the champion, the better. The more that you're able to actually believe that in the long term you're going to pull this out. That helps if it's actually real belief. You know, if you actually are planning on going ahead and striving to be the champion, remember that it doesn't matter if you actually make it or not, because you can just fold that over to the next thing you're tackling. But I would say afterwards, a sense of accomplishment is more like a distraction. Like, sure, you can feel a sense of accomplishment. That is fine. Just don't let it distract you from the next step. Don't let the pride and the accomplishment slow you down. I think that accomplishment is oftentimes a malperforming emotion, meaning it's an emotion that lowers performance because it makes you more relaxed. And I think that being relaxed is pretty freaking dangerous in terms of high performance and motivation as well. So, is a sense of accomplishment bad? Not inherently. Is it useful? Not really. Is it dysfunctional? Does it mean that by that I mean, does it actually hamper emotion? Does it hamper motivation and striving? Yes, it does, more often than not. And it's also really not that useful for anything. So I would say, have it or not, that's fine, but treat it as any other emotion that is just kind of there, and don't let it affect your motivation, and don't let it affect your mindset in terms of your pride and your ego. You can yell at it, fuel your ego. Probably it'll fuel your ego, and that'll be fine, because you need ego. And then don't let it affect your actual relaxation level, about your sharpness when you tackle a task, the next task. Don't let it lower down your sense of of vigor, I would say. All right, next and last question. But before I jump into that, I wanted to talk about my Mac program. Because you are watching the show, you get a discount, the AskWeldon code, which gives you a $5 discount. This is my training program. This is the program that I use to support this channel. It's the program that I use to support kind of everything that I'm doing in esports outside of the pro teams and the content that I make. And this program is something that I'm going to be working on even more in 2018. One of the reasons that I'm focusing on getting the stream out and the show out every single day, getting content out every single day, is because I'm aspiring to, out of the Mac program, create this experience which is more like an app, which takes you through the same skill set that I have used with almost all the teams that I've trained. That is kind of the fundamental basis of science behind all of the answers that I'm giving in high performance and in sports psychology, that to me is really becoming the core tool in high performance and in just living life practically and in a very kind of like elevated way in general, whether we're talking not about high performance, but just about, average performance of parenting or working or hobbying. Or just amateur sport, even in that regard. So this program I'm very excited about, and I think that you should, at the very least, check out the page and read about it and see what kind of information there is about it. The mindfulness, acceptance, commitment skills are all the core skills that I think that you need to answer a lot of these questions. Mindful awareness, acceptance of emotional states, and commitment to a course of action that you might not be motivated by, but that is driving you regardless to accomplish the valued goals that you are trying to set for yourself. So that is that is what it is. As far as what it practically is, it's just 50 videos online as a course, as a cheap course, the inexpensive course, not cheap, inexpensive course that you can jump through, and that you can kind of right now, unfortunately, it doesn't have a lot of motivation baked in because it's not appified, it's not gamified, it's not whatever modernified. It's just for those of you who are like, I'm interested in this and I am going to watch one of these every single day, and it's really fascinating to hear Weldon's voice in my ear all the time. So I just want more. Then it's for you, and it's kind of like a course. You do one video, and then the next day you do another one, and the next day you do another one, and there's a series of lectures. Every single day is a lecture, plus a mindfulness training, and that's pretty much it. It's really straightforward. You can check it out, and then I have a 100% guarantee. And people were asking like, well, doesn't that sound like a diet product that you have a 100% guarantee? And I say, maybe, but I'm not guaranteeing you're going to lose weight, and I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to learn. I'm going to guarantee that you like this thing, and if you don't, I'll just give you your money back, because I'm not really in it for the money. I'm in it more for the impact. Although the money is what's going to fuel then the next version of this app, which is going to fuel more impact. So that's kind of how the money part plays in. And also, it plays in a little bit for discipline on the other side, right? I was doing this for free, but the element of discipline that you have when you spend more money, or even a little bit of token money, is an important element of choosing to kind of like go through with something and ensuring that you have something that is quality, right? So anyway, yeah, if you try it out and you're like, not for me, just ding me on my email, which you will have from the receipt, and I'll just refund it. Which, by the way, I have a refund request waiting in my inbox, and if you are watching the show, I apologize. I'm getting to it right after this. Actually, I lied, right after the gym, then I'm coming back. Then I'll get to it. My internet in the Canary Islands last week, where I went on my first vacation in 5 years without kids, with my wife, to kind of like decompress and make life plans. Make life plans for the next 5 years of our life. We had a little powwow. Basically, we were like, okay, we have a chance to breathe. Not changing a diaper for the next 3 days. So let's figure out like what in the world we're doing right now. Anyway, I didn't have very good internet there, and so I wasn't able to do that refund. So I apologize, but I will get to it. I promise. And I hope you weren't missing your $25. Okay, final question. And I accepted this question because it's a little serious, but I think it's an important one. XRetnella on Twitter, April 27th, 2017. This was asked like April a year ago. How do I get motivated? I have had clinical depression for years, and I just can't motivate myself to do anything at all. Okay, so motivation, XRetnella, and all of you who are watching, is an emotion. I want you to think of it as an emotion, like happiness and sadness and joy and sorrow. And so it's really tough when you're in a state where your neurotransmitter levels are messed up, your serotonin and your dopamine is messed up, to feel the emotion of motivation. So I have bad news for you there. I think that what you're proposing is a challenge, very challenging. But don't lose hope. Couple reasons. Number one, even when you're depressed, you might notice that you're doing some behaviors more. So, for example, you might fall into a certain kind of like habit or hobby or something like that, such as reading, such as playing video games, such as hanging out on a social network, whatever it is. And I want you to start looking at your behaviors and ascribing to them a certain kind of motivation. The things that you are doing are the things that motivate you. The things that you are doing are the things that give you emotion. And unfortunately, sometimes that is cutting, you know? So, like, some people are like, this is the thing that gives me emotion, and this is the thing that is motivating to me, and so that's what I'm going to do. And that is, you know, unfortunately a fact of how the brain works, that when you get into those states which are so dark, that you need to feel something, that you feel physical sensation, and you want to give that to yourself as a way of like kind of unnumbing the emotions. But I want to go lighter than that. I want you to step away from the physical sensation as a supplement for emotion, and I want you to start to look at behaviors that you're doing and start to uncover the oftentimes very, very heavy motivational component and emotional component of those behaviors that is there but is being kind of overlaid with a veil. So start with your behaviors, not the I don't want to say maladjusted, but not the ones that are dangerous to you, but the ones that you're just kind of like habitually doing, and start there and say like, okay, I'm doing this. That means there has to be some component of habituation or motivation behind it. Start to look for the emotion in there and uncover it. And I think that you might think like, oh, I'm going to uncover this very light thing that's hiding there, but I think that you might actually find it to be very overpoweringly strong. But start with those kind of moments. And then the second thing that I would do is I would say, you're not going to dig yourself out of this by seeking motivation, because I think action in a large part is a big part of what helps people with depression. And by the way, I am not a clinical psychologist. I probably should have said this at the first, but I forgot because I say it so often. But I am not a clinical psychologist. I am not a clinical psychologist. Just a reminder. I'm a sport psychology trainer. So I am not qualified to answer questions about actual clinical depression in any way. But this is about how do I get motivated. And I think that one of the things that I have seen from the experience I've had working with athletes is that the goals come first. The kind of just the motion, just the movement towards something. So if you're able to set a goal, not just a regular goal, but a valued goal. And for that, I have a worksheet actually, which I created for a recent workshop for players in Mexico, Latin America North. So you can go to mindgames.gg/LAN, mindgames.gg/LAN, or if you are a Spanish speaker, metas, and /metas, and you can find there a worksheet that takes you through goal setting, but from a valued perspective. So goals that you actually value, like in terms of long-term, in terms of like intrinsic values of what it is, how it is that you see yourself in the way that you want to be in the world. And these kind of goals are things that you can more force yourself to do in the absence of motivation. So it's really hard. It's really easy to set a goal like, hey, I want to be a world champion, or hey, I want to do 20 push-ups today, that have zero connection to things that you value about yourself, and you don't do the work to connect them, and then it's really hard to discipline yourself to actually go through with the behavior or the action because you don't have any emotion about it. But if you set a valued goal, you also don't have any emotion about it, but it's tied to how you see yourself, tied to an element of your identity that you have clearly lined up and said, this is important to me, and then you're more easily able to discipline yourself to do the behavior. And then from that movement, from that forward momentum, you can start to generate this emotion, this motivation, this sense of pride which I was talking about before, the sense of accomplishment. It's very good for if you have depression, this sense of accomplishment and pride. So it's not so great for high performance, but it's really great for any performance, for just getting the ball rolling. So that was the previous question, in case you were remembering. But yeah, Retinella, thanks for opening this can of worms. Thanks for putting this out there and asking the hard questions. And I avoided this because for a year, because I am not a clinical psychologist and I am not qualified, and I don't want to play doctor on the internet, and I don't want to confuse people because my title of the degree that I have is so close to the title of a psychologist or a psychotherapist that I don't want to confuse people. But I think that this is a very important topic, and I wanted to bring this question up and just put it out there and share the information that I do have. I wanted to give the advice that I do have for this, regardless of whether or not you guys mistakenly take it for qualified advice or not. So that is what it is, and thank you for tuning in for the show. Sorry for the kind of like slow down ending. Sorry if it's a little bit dark here at the end, but I hope that it's also light, a little bit uplifting. And remember that you can find lots more uplifting, entertaining content on places like my Snapchat, where yesterday I fell on my butt on the ice, which is a lot more, lighthearted than falling on your butt metaphorically, mentally, which I think is what Retinella has been doing for a while. Hopefully you're able to stop the trend, and hopefully by the time that this question actually has been answered for you, you've been able to kick it and find some help for yourself and find some help within yourself as well. But yeah, I think I already talked about the Mac program. I think I already talked about my Snapchat. I'm trying to hit 25,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. And you guys, in the last week, we lost 87 subscribers. Net. I think we gained a few. But come on. There are hundreds of you watching the show, and I'm sure some of you have friends who really need to hear this, who are playing Overwatch with you, who are playing League of Legends with you, who are TSM fans right now, when they're about to go 0-3, 0-4 this weekend, maybe, and who really need the uplifting content, who really need the help, who really need to subscribe to my channel. So get the word out there. Get the word out there, and let's find a way to break through, get to 25K. I don't want to drop below 24K. It might happen. I've ignored YouTube as a platform for a year because I've been so busy with teams and with Dojo, and I'm recommitting to it. So I know the grind is going to be real, but man, going backwards for 24 months onwards is really depressing. Same with Twitter. Still can't break 25K on Twitter either. It's like my bane. It's my mental block. I need a sports psychologist to help me get through this block and get to 25,000 subscribers on Twitter and YouTube. Because I've been saying it for a while, but it's not true. It's not true. It's just a good way to estimate. All right, guys. Thanks again for stopping by the show, and I will see you next time.